Wow, I'm back. In 2026, knowing React alone is no longer enough. The front-end landscape is changing faster than most developers realize that if you don't recognize at least half of the frameworks in this video, you're already behind. Today, I'll break down the top 9 front-end frameworks and libraries every developer should know in 2026. Some of them are obvious, some are underrated, and one of them might completely change how you build front-end apps. Make sure you watch until the end. The ranking might surprise you. Let's start with number 9, Astro. Astro is one of those frameworks that doesn't try to compete head-to-head with React, Vue, or Angular. And that's exactly why it's interesting. Astro's core idea is very simple, but also very radical. Ship as little JavaScript as possible by default. In fact, Astro prefers shipping no JavaScript at all unless you explicitly ask for it. And in 2026, this philosophy makes more sense than ever. Let's be honest. Most websites on the internet are not complex web apps. They're blogs, landing pages, marketing sites, documentation, or content-heavy platforms. For these kinds of websites, performance, SEO, and loading speed matter way more than fancy client-side interactions. This is where Astro really shines. Out of the box, Astro delivers excellent core web vitals, very fast first load, and clean HTML. You don't need to fight the framework to get good performance. It's just there by default. Another strong point is that Astro is framework agnostic. You can use React, Vue, Svelte, or even plain HTML inside the same Astro project. This makes Astro very flexible, especially for teams that already have mixed front-end experience. The biggest limitation of Astro is also its biggest strength. It's not designed for highly interactive applications. If your project looks more like a dashboard, a real-time app, or a complex SPA with lots of client-side state, Astro will start to feel awkward very quickly. Yes, you can add interactivity using islands, but once your entire app becomes interactive, you'll start asking yourself, why am I not just using React or Vue directly? From a career perspective, Astro is still somewhat niche. It's growing fast, but it's not a job safety framework yet. Knowing Astro is a great bonus skill, especially for performance-focused or content-driven roles, but it probably shouldn't be the only framework you know. My personal take is this. Astro is an excellent tool, but only when used for the right type of problem. If you use Astro for what it's good at, it feels amazing. If you force it into a full app scenario, it will fight back. Let's start with number 8, Nuxt.js. Nuxt.js is often called Next.js for Vue, and in my opinion, that description is not only accurate, it actually undersells how powerful Nuxt really is. If you're a Vue developer and you want to build something serious for production, Nuxt is not just an option, it's almost the default choice. Nuxt takes Vue and turns it into a complete, opinionated framework that solves most real-world problems up front. Out of the box, Nuxt gives you server-side rendering, static site generation, file-based routing, layouts, middleware, data fetching, and even backend APIs. You don't need to spend weeks deciding your stack. Nuxt already made those decisions for you, and for many teams, that's a huge advantage. Where Nuxt really excels is in SEO-first and content-driven websites. Company websites, blogs, marketing platforms, landing pages, and even large e-commerce sites benefit massively from Nuxt's SSR and SSG capabilities. Pages load fast, metadata is handled cleanly, and search engines have zero trouble indexing your content. Another underrated strength of Nuxt is developer experience. The auto-import system, the clear folder structure, and the convention over configuration approach allow developers to move fast without feeling lost. Especially for small to mid-sized teams, Nuxt can dramatically speed up development. However, Nuxt is not without its weaknesses. One of the biggest downsides is abstraction. Nuxt hides a lot of complexity behind the scenes. This is great when everything works, but when something breaks, especially with SSR, debugging can become painful. If you don't understand what's happening under the hood, Nuxt can feel like a black box. Another limitation is the job market. Vue already has fewer global job opportunities compared to React, and since Nuxt is tightly coupled with Vue, it inherits that reality. From a purely career-focused perspective, learning Nuxt won't open as many doors as Next.js, even though technically, Nuxt is just as capable. There's also the ecosystem factor. While Nuxt's ecosystem is mature, it's still smaller than React's. Finding enterprise-grade integrations, third-party tools, or long-term case studies can sometimes be harder. My honest opinion? Nuxt.js is one of the most underrated front-end frameworks today. It's not weaker than Next.js. It simply lives in a smaller ecosystem. If you enjoy Vue's syntax and philosophy, Nuxt is hands down one of the best tools you can invest in for modern web development. Coming in at number 7, Qwik. Qwik is one of the most controversial front-end frameworks on this list, and that's exactly why it deserves attention. At first glance, Qwik feels confusing. It looks like React, but it doesn't behave like React. And that's intentional. Qwik is built around one core idea: resumability. Instead of hydrating the entire application on the client like most frameworks do, Qwik resumes execution exactly where the user interacts. That means almost zero JavaScript is needed on initial load, and JavaScript is only loaded when it's actually required. In practice, this leads to near-instant page loads. First load performance is extremely impressive, especially on slow devices and mobile networks. For core web vitals, Qwik often performs better than traditional SBA frameworks. This makes Qwik very attractive for performance-critical applications, marketing websites, and platforms where speed is a competitive advantage. However, Qwik comes with a cost, and that cost is mental overhead. The programming model of Qwik is very different from what most front-end developers are used to. Concepts like lazy execution, serialization, and resumability require a mindset shift. You can't just write React-style code and expect Qwik to behave the same way. Another concern is maturity. Qwik is still relatively young. While the core ideas are solid and backed by smart people, the ecosystem is smaller, tooling is still evolving, and real-world production case studies are limited compared to React, Vue, or even Svelte. From a career perspective, Qwik is a high-risk, high-reward skill. Knowing Qwik can make you stand out as a performance-focused developer, but it won't give you immediate job security in most markets. My honest take: Qwik feels like a framework from the future. It challenges long-standing assumptions about hydration and client-side rendering. But in 2026, it's still a framework you should experiment with, not fully bet your career on, at least not yet. Coming in at number 6, Solid.js. At a glance, Solid looks very similar to React. It uses JSX, components, and a familiar syntax. But under the hood, Solid is doing something very different and much more efficient. The core idea behind Solid.js is fine-grained reactivity. Unlike React, Solid does not use a virtual DOM. Instead, it updates the real DOM directly and only where changes actually happen. No re-renders, no diffing, no wasted work. The result is insane performance. Solid is consistently one of the fastest front-end frameworks in benchmarks, especially when it comes to frequent updates and complex state changes. For developers who care deeply about performance, Solid feels almost magical. You write code that looks simple and declarative, but it runs extremely efficiently. However, Solid is not perfect. The biggest issue with Solid.js is adoption. The community is still relatively small, and the ecosystem is limited compared to React or Vue. Finding libraries, tutorials, or production examples can be harder. Another challenge is mental friction. Even though Solid looks like React, it does not behave like React. If you bring React assumptions into Solid, you will get confused quickly. You need to understand signals, reactivity, and how Solid tracks dependencies. From a career perspective, Solid is still a niche skill. It's impressive to know, and it signals strong front-end fundamentals, but it won't guarantee job opportunities in most markets. My honest opinion? Solid.js is one of the best designed front-end frameworks today from a technical standpoint. But in 2026, it's still a framework for developers who value performance and elegance over popularity and job safety. Coming in at number 5, Svelte and SvelteKit. Svelte is one of those frameworks that makes developers say, "Why isn't front-end always this simple?" The biggest difference between Svelte and most other frameworks is that Svelte is a compiler, not a runtime-heavy library. Instead of shipping a large framework to the browser, Svelte compiles your code into highly optimized vanilla JavaScript at build time. And the result is immediately noticeable: less code, smaller bundles, and very fast applications. From a developer experience perspective, Svelte feels extremely refreshing. There's less boilerplate, less mental overhead, and less framework fighting. You write what you mean, and the framework gets out of your way. This simplicity is one of Svelte's biggest strengths. Beginners can pick it up quickly, and experienced developers often feel more productive compared to React or Angular. Now enter SvelteKit, the meta framework that turns Svelte into a full production-ready solution. With SvelteKit, you get routing, SSR, SSG, data loading, and server endpoints out of the box. It covers almost all modern front-end needs. SvelteKit is especially strong for modern web apps, startups, and teams that value speed and clarity. Building something from idea to production feels fast and smooth. But Svelte is not perfect. The biggest drawback is ecosystem size. Compared to React or even Vue, Svelte's ecosystem is still much smaller. You'll find fewer libraries, fewer enterprise tools, and fewer large-scale production case studies. Another concern is job market reality. While Svelte is loved by developers, it hasn't translated into massive job demand yet. Knowing Svelte is impressive, but it's rarely listed as a hard requirement in job descriptions. There's also a long-term question. Will Svelte's growth keep accelerating, or will it remain a developer-favorite niche? My personal take? Svelte and SvelteKit offer one of the best developer experiences in frontend today. If productivity, readability, and simplicity matter to you, Svelte is incredibly hard to beat. But in 2026, it's still a framework you choose for joy and efficiency, not pure job security. Coming in at number 4, Angular. Angular is probably the most controversial front-end framework on this list. Some developers love it. Many developers hate it. But one thing is undeniable. Angular is extremely powerful, especially in enterprise environments. Angular is not just a library. It is a full, opinionated framework. It tells you how to structure your app, how to handle state, how to manage forms, routing, HTTP, dependency injection, everything. This level of structure is exactly why large companies choose Angular. When you have big teams, long-term projects, and strict requirements, Angular shines. It enforces consistency and reduces architectural chaos. Angular also uses TypeScript by default, which is a huge advantage for maintainability. In large code bases, TypeScript combined with Angular's strong conventions can save teams from countless bugs. From a performance perspective, modern Angular is much better than its early versions. With features like standalone components, improved change detection, and signals, Angular in 2026 feels faster and more modern than many people expect. But let's be honest, Angular has serious downsides. The biggest one is complexity. Angular has a steep learning curve. New developers often feel overwhelmed by decorators, modules, dependency injection, Next.js, and Angular-specific concepts. Development speed can also be slower, especially for small teams or simple projects. For startups or solo developers, Angular often feels like overkill. Another issue is developer happiness. Many front-end developers simply don't enjoy working with Angular compared to React, Vue, or Svelte. That matters more than companies like to admit. Career-wise, Angular is interesting. While it's less trendy, Angular jobs pay well and are often more stable. Many enterprise systems built years ago still rely heavily on Angular, and they will not be rewritten anytime soon. My personal take? Angular is not cool. It's not sexy, but it is reliable, structured, and battle-tested. In 2026, Angular remains a top choice for enterprise-scale applications, but it's rarely the first choice for passion projects or startups. Coming in at number 3, Vue.js. Vue.js is often described as the most balanced front-end framework in the ecosystem. It doesn't try to be the fastest like Solid. It doesn't try to be the simplest like Svelte. And it doesn't try to control everything like Angular. Instead, Vue focuses on developer friendliness. Vue is incredibly easy to pick up. The learning curve is smooth, especially for beginners coming from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The template syntax feels natural, readable, and intuitive. At the same time, Vue is powerful enough to scale. With the Composition API, Vue gives developers fine control over logic organization, reusability, and maintainability. Small apps stay simple, and large apps stay manageable. One of Vue's biggest strengths is its documentation. Vue has some of the best official docs in frontend, clear, practical, and beginner-friendly. That alone saves developers countless hours. Vue is also extremely popular in Asia and startup environments. Many companies choose Vue because it allows teams to move fast without sacrificing structure. Performance-wise, Vue is solid. It may not top benchmarks like Solid or Qwik, but in real-world applications, Vue performs more than well enough for most use cases. However, Vue is not without weaknesses. The biggest challenge Vue faces is market perception. In some regions, Vue is seen as less enterprise compared to Angular or less mainstream compared to React. This affects job availability in certain markets. Another issue is fragmentation. Vue 2 to Vue 3 was a painful transition for many teams. While Vue 3 is clearly better, some legacy projects and libraries are still catching up. From a career perspective, Vue is a safe but regional bet. In Asia, Vue job demand is strong. In Western markets, React still dominates. My honest opinion, Vue.js is one of the most enjoyable frameworks to work with. It doesn't fight you, it doesn't overwhelm you, and it doesn't force extreme patterns. In 2026, Vue remains a top-tier choice for developers who value clarity, balance, and productivity. Coming in at number 2, Next.js. Next.js is not just a framework anymore, it's a full web platform. In 2026, when people say React, they often actually mean React plus Next.js. That alone tells you how dominant Next.js has become. Next.js takes React and solves almost every real-world problem developers face. Routing, server-side rendering, static generation, SEO, data fetching, image optimization, performance, and now even backend logic. With the app router, server components, and server actions, Next.js has pushed React into a full-stack direction. You're no longer just building UI, you're building the entire web experience in one framework. One of Next.js's biggest strengths is SEO and performance out of the box. SSR and SSG make content indexable, fast, and user-friendly. This is why Next.js dominates marketing websites, SaaS products, and content-heavy platforms. Another massive advantage is ecosystem and backing. Being maintained by Vercel, Next.js evolves extremely fast and stays closely aligned with React's future. Tooling, hosting, deployment, analytics, everything fits together. But this power comes at a cost. Next.js is becoming complex. Concepts like server versus client components, caching layers, streaming, and partial rendering can be confusing, even for experienced developers. Debugging is also harder. When something breaks, you often have to think across multiple layers: browser, server, edge, build time, and runtime. There's also a concern about lock-in. Next.js is deeply integrated with Vercel's ecosystem. While you can deploy elsewhere, the best experience often assumes Vercel. From a career perspective, Next.js is gold. Knowing Next.js in 2026 dramatically increases your value as a front-end or full-stack developer. Many companies now expect React developers to also understand Next.js. My personal take: Next.js is powerful, opinionated, and sometimes frustrating, but it defines modern web development. In 2026, if you build serious React applications and ignore Next.js, you're limiting yourself. And finally, coming in at number 1, React. React is still the undisputed king of front-end development. Despite the rise of many new frameworks that are faster, simpler, or more elegant, React remains the most influential technology in the front-end ecosystem. Why? Because React is not just a library, it's an industry standard. React has the largest ecosystem by far. Thousands of libraries, tools, UI frameworks, and integrations exist specifically because React exists. No other front-end technology comes close in terms of community size and maturity. From startups to big tech companies, React is everywhere. Web apps, mobile apps with React Native, desktop apps, internal tools. React powers an enormous portion of the modern web. Another massive strength is job demand. In 2026, React still dominates job listings worldwide. Learning React is still the safest investment a front-end developer can make. Technically, React has evolved a lot. With hooks, Concurrent rendering, server components, and close integration with frameworks like Next.js. React is no longer just about rendering UI. It's about managing complex application behavior. But React is not perfect. React is not the fastest framework. It is not the simplest. And it often requires a lot of decisions from the developer. Routing, state management, data fetching. React alone doesn't give you a complete solution. This flexibility can become a weakness. New developers often feel overwhelmed by the number of choices and patterns in the React ecosystem. React also relies heavily on meta-frameworks like Next.js to shine in real-world applications. On its own, React feels incomplete for modern web needs. So why is React still number one? Because React wins where it matters most: adoption, ecosystem, and career impact. My personal view is simple. React may not be the most elegant framework, but it is the most powerful platform for front-end developers. In 2026, knowing React doesn't just mean you can build UIs. It means you can participate in the largest and most active front-end ecosystem in the world. So that's my list of the top front-end frameworks and libraries in 2026. Trends will change. Tools will come and go. But fundamentals, mindset, and ecosystems, those are what really shape a developer's career. If this video helped you see the front-end landscape more clearly, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be sharing more real-world front-end insights, career perspectives, and deep dives, not just hype. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.